Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I'm the Omni viewer, and we've got some more Godzilla news that's just come in, this time regarding a new wave of IDW comics. You may recall that late in 2024, I reported that IDW was going to be launching a new era of Godzilla comics, that they were going to be kind of branching out a bit because instead of doing a single ongoing series surrounded by a bunch of 5-issue limited series, the plan now, well, they're still doing the limited series. The plan now is to have a shared universe, kind of like what Marvel and DC have been doing this whole time, only now it's focused around Godzilla. And there have been some major updates. Not only do we have an idea of what the first 3 titles will be, we also have a name for the entire series itself. It is going to be called the Kai-Sei era, which marks the first time that a Godzilla comic book series has actually gotten its own era title. Usually era titles are reserved for the movies, right? The movies from the 50s through the 70s were Showa, 80s through 90s was Heisei, and then you had Millennium, and we're currently in both Reiwa and Monsterverse. Of course, sometimes nothing gets a name. The 1998 movie and Godzilla the series, they're just kind of their own thing, and nobody's actually given a name to them. They're not Heisei, they're not Millennium, they just sort of exist on their own. I guess you could call it the 98 era, but I don't know anyone who actually does that. So, the comics that are going to be starting this year are called the Kai-Sei era. Why Kai-Sei? Well, apparently because the rules for this new universe state that Godzilla and other kaiju still started coming out in the 50s, but rather than be released by atomic testing, they were released by something called Kai-Sei energy, which I'm sure we'll learn about as each series progresses. So, what are the titles we have to look forward to? First one is entitled simply Godzilla. All of the titles have Godzilla in the name somehow, which implies he'll probably play at least a small role in each series, though the main one that features just his name is going to be focused on him. And it's also not the first time IDW has done a series that was just titled Godzilla, so that could potentially get confusing. I'm sure this will probably wind up being called Kai-Sei Godzilla or something like that by fans as time goes on. So this first issue is going to lay the groundwork, I suppose, which makes me wonder what issue 0 is going to do when it releases on Free Comic Book Day, but whatever. This first Godzilla series is going to lay out the history, tell us where the monsters come from, but also introduce a character recruited by G-Force, a young boy who has the powers of Godzilla, and G-Force is hoping that he'll somehow be able to face Godzilla head-on. The synopsis at this point does not give the character a name. I'm sure we'll learn that when the book actually comes out, or maybe it'll be revealed a little bit sooner. But right off the bat, that's a very different kind of premise, because we're going to have a human going toe-to-toe with Godzilla without piloting a giant robot or something in the process. So there's one thing that's going to set it apart. What we do have is a clear look at what the new Godzilla design is going to be, which you can see right here. The overall body structure looks kind of like it's a mix of the legendary Godzilla and -1 Godzilla, though clearly its own thing. And the most prominent thing, of course, are the green spines and glowing veins running through his body. This will be the first time that Godzilla has specifically glowed green. It's specifically that shade of lime green that's generally associated with evil, whether it's Maleficent casting black magic or the possessed halls of the starship Event Horizon. So, probably connected to the Kai-Sei energy, because the human character also glows green. Overall, the Godzilla design looks okay at this point. We'll have to wait to see how it really looks in action. I'm noticing there's not a lot of detail in this particular drawing, but you know what? Maybe it'll look a little bit better once we actually see it in context. At this point, I don't think it's a bad design, but I don't think it's wowing me either. But you know, as far as Godzilla designs go, it still looks like Godzilla, and that's what matters at this point. And then we have two other titles. Again, they both have Godzilla in the name, but they're not necessarily going to be focused on Godzilla. The second of the titles announced was Godzilla Escape the Dead Zone, which is going to be set in this one particular area that in this new universe is like a post-apocalyptic wasteland, apparently, where mankind has abandoned it, monsters roam freely, and there's a character in here. Again, we don't have a name reveal just yet, but this character is going to be the first half-human, half-kaiju in any Toho movie. I mean, unless you count the Frankenstein from Frankenstein Conquers the World, but I'm not sure that really counts. Anyway, we don't have a clear look at this character just yet. We can tell he's human-sized. He obviously is wearing some pretty baggy-looking clothes, and apparently has a baseball cap. He has a tail, he's got big kaiju hands. We can't see his face, though, so we don't know how human or how monstrous he actually appears. The plot synopsis also reveals that this book will reveal secrets that will completely change how we look at this universe. Which is kind of an odd thing to say, because I don't even know how to look at this universe yet, and you're telling me it's already going to change just with one other title? Okay, we're moving right along, I guess. So, the idea of a half-human, half-monster character in one of these movies could certainly be interesting. I'm sure that's somehow going to connect to the character from the other book, the single Godzilla title, where he has Godzilla's powers. There's got to be a connection there of some sort. But what that connection is at this point, we really don't know. The third title is Starship Godzilla. Back when the Kai-Sei era was first announced, before we even knew it was called the Kai-Sei era, one of the things they mentioned was a star-bound Mechagodzilla, and that's what this series is going to be focused on. Apparently here, Mechagodzilla, which looks kind of inspired by Kiryu, but definitely isn't exactly that. Apparently it's going to be a proper starship that's going to be going around the universe and taking a ragtag crew to all the different alien worlds that we know in the Godzilla series. That's what it's implying anyway, like it's going to go to the third planet from the black hole, or Nebula M, or wherever Hedora comes from, or Planet X, or all these different things. So, again, that's a very different concept, right? The only time that the Godzilla series has ever officially moved beyond the Earth was in Godzilla vs. Monster Zero. Unless there was like an episode from one of the cartoons that I'm forgetting. But, you know, other than that, it's remained fairly grounded on our planet. So the idea that we're now going to these different alien worlds, that certainly is intriguing. And we do get a look at some of the human characters, the clearest look we've gotten at this point. Again, we don't have names, although the way the humans are drawn, at least on this cover, does look kind of manga-inspired. Not that that's a bad thing. And as far as Mechagodzilla's design goes, I can't see enough of it at this point to really make a full judgment. Like I said, looks kind of Kiryu-esque, but is definitely not just Kiryu. We will see. I'm hoping that it's more than just a starship, because the Heisei Mechagodzilla was basically just a big tank, and there were some tricks done to at least make it seem like it had a personality, but it still ultimately is just a ship, and the same deal was with Mogura. So hopefully this whole Starship Mechagodzilla thing plays out slightly differently. At least give it like a HAL 9000 AI or something to make things interesting. So that's what we've got to look forward to at this point. Now, the Kai-Sei era is, if it does well, it's going to have other titles, presumably. Maybe other kaiju are going to be the focus of their own books. Maybe we'll have some new eras, new time periods, new locations introduced. For now, we've got these three. We've got a Godzilla-focused one that's going to be predominantly focused on, I guess that's going to be the main series. And you've got two side series that are going to tie in somehow. How will it go? Well, that remains to be seen, but they'll be released later this year. And that, of course, is in addition to the announced return of Godzilla to the Marvel Universe, as well as a second MonsterVerse DC Universe crossover. So this year's going to be a very busy year for Godzilla comics. And hopefully the Kai-Sei era is worth it. I will let you guys know when the time actually comes. So, those are the big updates for now. Until such time as we meet again, this is the Omni Viewer signing off.